super excited about the possibility for more small businesses and local businesses to come into Chesapeake for a bunch of reasons. I think it's great to support small businesses. I think it's great to support local businesses, and it would be amazing to be able to do that in our own community, to be able to come out here and enjoy the water, but also to be able to support our community would be amazing.
I think that small businesses would be great on the waterfront as long as it's done in a responsible way for the ecosystem and the growth of our community and the traffic in our area. So yes, I would like small businesses to be able to come in.
So my name's Brian Solis. I'm one of the deputy city managers for the city of Chesapeake, and I say one of them because in the newest one, last year and a half, position was created to focus on community development, and so that is the departments of development and permits, economic development, planning, and parks, recreation, and tourism. In Virginia, we're a Dillon Rule state. What a Dillon Rule state is that unless something is explicitly stated in the state code, a city, county, or town cannot create a law for it. We also cannot acquire property by eminent domain, meaning that we just acquire somebody's property without their consent. So we cannot and should not do that in Virginia. When we're creating a framework needed to try to induce waterfront development, and that waterfront development happens to have a plaza that not private but is public where anybody can traverse it, we have to formally kind of create that because a lot of times it's on somebody else's property. You have to get things like public access easements conveyed, which means that usually the property owner has to be compensated for the public to be able to use that waterfront, for example. So Chesapeake is unique in that it has a lot of gateways at our waterways. We have drawbridges at the Deep Creek locks and the Great Bridge locks, and at Centerville Turnpike. And then we have higher bridges that are at our state routes like Battlefield Boulevard, Route 168, and then Dominion Boulevard, Route 17. And at the drawbridges and at the locks, in order to operate those locks, the Army Corps of Engineers is the federal jurisdiction that is charged with operating the raising and lowering of the waterways. And so as part of that management of those spaces, they own land parallel to the water there. The good news is that they're open to leasing some of their rights to that property for public use. And they get to review and approve what uses can occur there that don't conflict with the operation of the canal and the locks. In order for that, the main part of the canal that they maintain at a certain depth for water vessels to traverse it as part of the Intracoastal Waterway, they have to permit and they have overall jurisdiction over what activities occur there. Whenever we want to make improvements on waterfront land that we don't own, that the city doesn't own, we have to seek permission to do that. Or we put policies in place that encourage private property owners. We try to work with them to make improvements to the property so that they're able to make money as a business, but also provide those meaningful places for people to gather. City Council approved a Great Bridge Historic Gateway Overlay District, and it sounds like a lot, but it's a linear virtual layer, and it creates design guidelines that have architecture that kind of harkens back to the heritage of Great Bridge, architecture that welcomes pedestrian activity and speaks to pedestrians. some of the uses may not be appropriate in close proximity to public schools, to churches, to daycares. And, we will consider vape shops and tobacco shops to be, new regulations that either not allowed or have to come before city council to get what's called a conditional use permit to be able to sell those type of products within proximity to those type of uses. Virginia, because of Dillon rule, we can't create a lot of new regulation. But since that's an evolving industry, including marijuana related products that have been approved from the General Assembly of the state, we have to make sure that we're abiding by, again, Dillon will state what the General Assembly has allowed to be sold throughout the Commonwealth. So what we do is we try to put as many guidelines in place that regulates the sale of those type of products to areas that are as far away from vulnerable uses as possible. A lot of times you'll see these type of shops are violating the city's sign ordinance by either having neon signage or actually post signs in the right of way saying CBD products or vape products sold here. It's okay to advertise it within the city sign regulations, but a lot of them are violating that. So we'll brief city council on what we have found through looking at all those shops and whether they meet the city sign ordinance or not. Briefing city council on related to tobacco and vape shops, regulating the use, regulating how they advertise in their signage, and to what extent they're operating legally. I don't want to stereotype and group them all into those category, but we will provide some insights to city council on what we have found and make recommendations on how we can protect more vulnerable populations. In 1995, though, I was an environmental planner implementing the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act, and that is to improve the water quality of Chesapeake Bay. During that time frame, Chesapeake was like the 5th fastest growing locality in the country. And so Chesapeake was really just trying to invest in keeping up with its infrastructure, its schools, to address where water and sewer went, because where water and sewer is extended to, development follows. And then to improve the level of service of our roadways. A lot of them during those high growth years were experiencing levels of service of E and F, and much like our grade system that's failing in terms of congestion. Fast forward, 25 to approaching 30 years later, Chesapeake has matured and has caught up in a lot of that infrastructure. We still have work to do. For a long ways, we have caught up, and so it's time to invest in quality of life improvements. Spent almost 23 years in Virginia Beach in a lot of different departments, but making quality of life improvements. Trying to take what we learned from there and apply them here, but the challenge is in Virginia Beach, they have a $3.25 billion tourism industry that really helps fund those quality of life improvements. Finally a convocation center or performance arts venue, not only to serve the public, but to serve our students. Vertical mixed use development that in effect is more walkable, where you park once and you spend the rest of your time as a pedestrian. Living River Trust, a private entity, nonprofit entity, used a $1 million grant from the state to dedicate that waterfront property that was zoned for more industrial development to the city for a public park. And a conservation easement was placed over that as well, so that it would be preserved in perpetuity. So we want to do more of that as well. So it's just not developing, sometimes it's preserving as well, and balancing preserving places for public use and conservation with inducing new economic development that will be new employment centers for tax revenue and for employees to make a living here. Because we're working on a number of initiatives in that way. So I think we will have made in 15 to 20 years substantial headway. I do believe that we will have some indoor facilities that really help promote the performing arts and our culture. We do want our students to come back and live here and have those opportunities to live here and then enjoy a higher quality of life here as well. Yeah.